Thank you for joining us for another power-packed message from Dr. Myles Munroe, provided by Munroe Global Incorporated and MunroeGlobal.com. We transform followers into leaders and leaders into agents of change. We hope that this message is a blessing to you as you advance your life and discover your purpose. Now, let's go into the message.
I could probably guarantee, without fear of contradiction, that most of you in this room were not formally mentored. Most of you are leaders by mistake. You didn't have someone who literally said to you, look, I'm going to help you. I'm going to train you. I'm going to be an example to you. I'm going to intentionally develop you. For the most part, none of us have those kinds of experience. Because we follow the bad examples. It's incredible how many leaders achieve leadership because they won a battle. Not because somebody handed them a baton. Sometimes we rejoice in our leadership position because we consider it a victory over other people. I won the election. I won the synod race. I won the bishopric title. It's as if we achieved something over people. This is not leadership. This is conquering human souls. Leadership is supposed to be the passage of power from one person to another. The second reason why we don't reproduce leaders is because we lack good models and mentors. I hope that as you leave this summit, that you will walk away with a commitment to begin to be a good example of a mentor. I am here hopefully to be an example to you. Some of you have been coming to this conference for over 20 years. I hope somewhere along the line that I hopefully was a model to you by my life and by my desire to see you grow. And I hope that causes you to want to go and do the same. We need models. I remember the story of Jesus when he sent his disciples to prepare a meal in another town. And he said, I will come later. I am convinced he intentionally set that up. Keep in mind now, he had them in a school. He was their master teacher. That's what the word Rabboni means. It's not a religious word. It's an educational word. It means master trainer. Rabboni. He was training these 12 men to stop thinking small, stop thinking about themselves. He wanted them to be prepared for world leadership, global influence. He wanted to break them out of their little cultures, their religious straitjackets. He wanted to make them true leaders. And he set up this situation for them to learn a lesson. He sent them by themselves to go and do something. And when they got there, the culture of those days were that when you arrive at a house, you were normally full of dust because the streets were unpaved, and your sandals would be filled with dirt, and your feet would be dusty. And it was a common custom when you arrive into a house that you would come to the door, and at every house there was a certain person that was a servant, and their job was to wash your feet before you enter the meal room, because they literally ate on the floor. They would lie down and eat. So your feet could be near people's faces. So that was a normal custom. Even today, they still do that kind of practice in the Middle East. They sit on pillows or lay on the floor and eat. And this was the situation. And when they arrived there at the house, there was no servant. And so 12 adult men stood outside that little house, waiting for someone to initiate leadership. These were experienced men. These were businessmen. They owned companies like fishing companies. These were intelligent men. These were matured men like you and women. And these men were standing outside, waiting, looking at each other, just looking around, just waiting. Where's the servant? And by the way, let me just say this. True leaders always initiate. A true leader never sits and waits for action. They initiate. And there they were, waiting. And they stayed there, we don't know, maybe for a couple of hours. And then Jesus, he finally arrives. He had it all set up. And he saw them and he says, what's wrong? Why are you out here? And they said, we came here to prepare the meal, and no one was here to wash our feet. They had no models of leadership. They had never seen a leader at work. Now keep in mind, he is their master teacher. So they should be washing his feet. What does he do? He's becoming a model. He said, one moment please. And he goes to the little shed. He picks up a basin with the servant's name on it. He picks up a towel that was hanging on a nail. He walks over to a well a few feet away, throws a bucket down, and these 12 men are watching this movement. They are in school. They're watching a master at work, a true leader. He throws the bucket in the hole, pulls up the water, pours it in the basin, and he staggers back toward them with this water splashing on him, and he puts it down on the dirt floor, and he sits on this wooden stool, had the servant's name on it. And he said, okay, first. And they were embarrassed. He said, come, line up, let's go. We got to eat. We got no time to waste. And one by one, they realized this is leadership. They had no models. How can I prove it? After they got in the house, of course, Peter was the great, talker. He was the last one on the line. And he was so devastated by that time. He told Jesus, please don't wash my feet. And Christ says, look, if I don't wash your feet, you ain't eating with us. That's what he told him. If I don't wash your feet, you have no part with me in this meal. And some of you make that a very spiritual thing. That was a sensible hygiene statement. If you don't wash your feet, you ain't bringing your dirty feet in this place to eat with us. And so we've developed this foot washing tradition from that. But it really wasn't a tradition. It was a sensible cultural statement. He washed Peter's feet. They sit down, they eat. I am sure that was a quiet meal for hours because everybody was embarrassed. And then eventually he knew that the lesson was learned. And so he said, did you realize what I did to you all outside? And that question has to do with what? Mentoring. See, the mentor will do things, hope you learn, and then ask you, did you learn? Did you see what I did? Did you see how I handled that situation? In other words, you are supposed to learn from the experience if you are a mentee. Did you understand what I did to you, he says. He says, I am your master and I wash your feet. He says, therefore, from now on, you should wash each other's feet. He was not establishing a church ritual. He was saying the lesson is whenever there is a need, don't wait for someone else to fill it. If you are present and you are capable, you do it. Leadership needs to be modeled. He could have sat there and fussed at them and attacked them and tell them how disappointed he was and these are grown men and why. He didn't say a word. He just picked up a basin. Everybody say model. Sometimes it's more important for you to do as a leader than to say as a leader. I would prefer you talk about what I did than what I said. Why don't we produce leaders? Number 3, we lack formal training. That's true. If no one formally trained you by mentoring you, there is a tendency for you not to do it yourself. Matter of fact, I think, notice I said in number 2, we lack what kind of models? Good models. Why? Because you can actually have a model of leadership that's bad. Like deacons fighting over a position in the church. That's a bad model. Or a bishop killing the other bishop so he could be bishop. And I'm talking about killing by assassination with your mouth. Gossip. Passing along innuendos and lies so you could win the election. And that's a model. People watch that. And they say, well, you know, next year I got to come up with a strategy of verbal assassination and make sure I win mine. So we get bad examples. His statement was, did you learn what I did? Did you see it? Am I a good model? I am training you formally what to do to produce leaders. So we are suffering from a lack of training ourselves. And that's why the International Leadership Association here is dedicated to formal training. This kind of experience for you, you never got this in college. You never got this kind of training in your Bible school or your seminary or your university, because they don't train formally in leadership. They give you all kind of information and hope you go there and make it. But we cannot leave leadership to chance. Fourth reason why we don't train leaders is because we lack the confidence to delegate. You know, most of us are afraid to share power. Leadership is about the sharing of power. In other words, a true leader doesn't pursue power, they empower. The goal of leadership is to share power, not protect power. The only way you can share power is if you are confident in yourself. No one could steal you. So give yourself away. Also, remember that any power you receive, you received. If you received something, it wasn't yours. You were not born with authority. You are always given authority. If you take authority, usurp authority, you are illegal. A true leader emerges. They don't conquer. When a leader emerges naturally, that's legitimate power. True leaders don't decide to be leaders. They are victims of destiny. True leaders, therefore, never want to fight for power. I remember Moses when he was attacked by his own sister. She wanted power. You remember her story. She woke up one morning and she said, you know something, I had enough of this. I used to clean this guy's bottom. I brought him up. I fed him milk. I watched him in the night. I'm the one who was watching in the river when he was in the basket. I'm the woman who protected him. I'm the one who volunteered myself and my mother to work to bring him up as nurses. I brought this young man up. How dare he think he can tell me what to do? And then she made this statement. He thinks God only speaks to him. God can speak to me too. She was pursuing power. And of course, we know there was a response from God. God warned her. He said, if you ever say this again, I will kill you. Can I suggest something to you? You can never compete with legitimate leadership. Why? Because true leadership really don't even want power. Moses actually said to her, I didn't ask for this job. I didn't want this. What an attitude. Moses was a true leader. Do you remember Moses said when those 70 members of his team were acting like him and Joshua became very jealous for Moses? Moses' response was, I wish everybody was like me. What an attitude. He was happy to share power. I hope you go back home and repent. Repent means to change your thinking. Stop falling in love with your chair. Take the seat belt off your chair in the office. No more seat belts. You don't want this to be a permanent place where you strap yourself in. You want to sit there loosely. You should spend most of your time in your position planning to vacate it. I'm literally doing that all my life. I'm always wanting to get out of this place. Because the greatest trap is the chair you're sitting in. We must have the confidence to share power, to delegate. That's why we don't reproduce leaders, because we want to hog the power so that we protect our insecurity. The fifth reason why we don't reproduce leaders is because we lack the power of letting go. You know, when your self-worth is tied to your title and your self-esteem is tied to your position, then you are a victim. You will want to protect that position. You will never want to leave it, because you realize that who you are as value is tied to what you do as activity, and therefore you don't ever want to let go. This is why people will fight and kill to stay in a position, because their self-worth is tied to that position. You have psychological problems. You are demented. This is serious. You can't let go. And so we don't not only not reproduce leaders, we make sure there is no leader around us. We don't want any competition. We kill our mentees. When you look at the third world countries, and this is why we focus on them so much, the third world leaders have never been trained. Colonialism made sure that they never trained the slaves. So when the vacuum appeared, when the colonial powers left, we had a lot of slaves who were wearing crowns. Now, woe to the land when a slave becomes king. Because an insecure person who never was trained to use power properly will use it on his own family. If you study all the third world nations, the struggles they have, they are always going through coups. And sometimes it's not even with bullets. They got sophisticated strategies now to kill off their so-called oppositions. They actually used to kill people. I'm talking about cousins and uncles and brothers. You know, here's a brother who becomes the president, and his other brother, the people like him better. He'll kill his brother, because he tied his worth to the position and the title. So mentoring is the farthest thing in his mind. He can't let go. Do you know, write this word down, one of the greatest weakness of leadership is entitlement, a sense of entitlement. This position belongs to me. I've been here for 40 years. How dare you come to take my position? I've been the director of this department for 40 years, 30 years. I've been the prayer warrior leader for 40 years. I've been the deacon. I've been in charge. I've been the usher for 40 years. You are sick. You can't let go. We believe we are entitled to something. Let me say a word to you religious people here. I used to be religious, so I could talk to you. There is so much leadership power plays in the church that I know that God himself disowns most of what we do. This is why, for example, from my understanding of Scripture, I could be wrong, but God never called an elder. Elders are never called. There's no such thing as the position, how can I say it? Elder is not in the list. You got pastor, prophets, evangelists, teachers, apostle, okay? Elder. Now, why is there no elder and deacon in that list? Because these are always delegated powers. Which means they lend you power. It never belongs to you. And they can take it back whenever they want. In other words, whoever you appoint, you can disappoint. So when you appoint someone in a religious environment and say, okay, you are now a deacon, you are now an elder, they think that's a calling. You weren't called to that. That was delegated power. You are never called to be an elder. That's not a calling. That's a privilege. So don't feel like you are entitled to that. I just belong. You're not an elder because God called you. You're an elder because the pastor chose you. He could unchoose you. So when we start telling people don't sit down or don't do this or I'm going to change you, they get mad and leave the church. They have no idea that that was a privilege, not a right. Again, we got to remember even the positions of apostles and prophets are not permanent. These are functions that are temporary. You remember Elijah, right? He tried to tell God, hey, I'm the best you got. God said, I'll fire you today. I got 70 people in line to take 7,000 to take your place. What are you talking about? You're not my favorite. It's a privilege. So don't be afraid to let go. And if you are a wise leader, you'll be happy to train people so you can move on to the next spot. We don't develop leaders because we are afraid of letting go, because we have tied our life to our title. And this is why people today are committing suicide all over the world, because their jobs were tied to their worth. And when they were fired because of downsizing or the crisis, they lose it, put a gun to their head. They go home and drink alcohol and go into a stupor. Why? Because they lost their lives, because their life was their jobs. Write this down. Plan your next position now. Always live beyond your position. The fifth reason why we don't reproduce, this is number 6, sorry, is we put paperwork before people work. I mentioned this before. We become so caught up in administration matters, so preoccupied with organizational issues that we forget the real purpose for leadership, and that is people. Take time to train people. You know, I walk around my entire organization very often. I go into every department. I touch everybody all the time. They'll tell you. Why? The ivory tower lifestyle is demonic. Training is when you get down and you touch, you talk. How's your family? How you doing? What's your challenge right now? I walk around the organization and I see things that need to be done that no one sees, you know. Oh, that needs changing. Oh, why is this like this? How long has it been like that? What? Let's fix that. That's leadership. You got to walk down. You got to get that basin with a towel. Get away from paper and find the people. Most of the leaders that I have encountered, they hide in their office from the people. Leadership is about serving people, not typing. If you leave us an excellent memo but didn't leave us a good person, you are a failure. Go back and make some changes. Restructure your priorities from this day forward. Let 2010 be the year that you become a people developer. Be a true leader. The seventh reason why we do not reproduce leaders is because of the absence of affirmation in our own lives. You know, sometimes we find it hard to affirm people because we were never affirmed. We need to feel confident enough to be able to say to people, that's a great job. I want you to do this again for me. Matter of fact, why don't you take this entire project and run with it? Because you are very good at what you do. I am so proud of you. How many times have you said that to the people you work with? I'm talking about walk through the whole company and just affirm people. No, we don't want to affirm anybody. We want them to be afraid of us. We threaten them with our presence. You don't say good things to your staff. Why? Oh, because they may take your job. They may actually think that you are soft. What are you talking about? Only confident people affirm others. I challenge you to be leaders who produce leaders. Affirm people. Let go. You know, I could have decided to be the pastor of the church that we started and be a pastor still. I was so quick to get rid of that. I have no need for power. Power is a tool that you use to improve other people. Power is a tool to empower others. Let them run the whole thing. They can do a better job than you anyhow, so let them take it. Why don't we produce good leaders? Because we have no room for mavericks. We don't want anyone who could compete with us or outshine us. The goal of leadership is to get people to outshine you, so that when they do, you take the credit. That's wisdom. When I think of my mentor, Jesus Christ, wow. The Bible says when the disciples came back and told him that they cast out demons and they healed the sick and they raised the dead, it says in that moment, Jesus rejoiced. Re means to return. Joyce means to jump. That means he kept jumping from one spot to another. So when you rejoice means to act. It's a physical thing. Can you imagine God on earth dancing because some other people did something great? Do you rejoice when the folks around you look good? Don't be afraid of mavericks. Mavericks are folks who will question your systems. Why? Because they ain't working anymore. They'll give you ideas to break up your old traditions. And you, of course, are protected by those positions, and your traditions protect your position. So if your traditions protect your position, you don't want anybody to touch the traditions. And Margaret comes and changes the traditions, and you don't want to lose your position, so you kill the maverick. So you not allow the maverick to develop. You don't produce leaders. This is number one. Number 10, we don't reproduce leaders because we have a dictatorship spirit in decision making. We like to tell people what to do. We don't encourage debate, consensus, ideas. We don't allow people to solve problems by themselves. You know, it's amazing that most of our organizations are run by our people. Matter of fact, all of it. Dr. Pinder, who's here this morning, will tell you that every department operates by itself. Because we've got intelligent leaders. I don't want an organization with a leader. I want an organization of leaders. Let me say it again because you missed it. See, the traditional concept of leadership is you have an organization with a leader. That's not God's concept. God's concept is I want an organization of leaders. Allow people to make decisions. So here's some principles then of mentoring people. Number one, be honest with correction and praise. These are practical. Please write these down. I'm telling you that this stuff will work as soon as you get back. First, be honest and correct with correction and praise. If someone needs correction, tell them. That's part of the training. If they did something well, praise them. That's also part of the training. Number two, give them recognition and praise. Tell people how well they're doing. Affirm them. Have a perspective of people, of the organization. Have vision of the needs of the future. In other words, look at what you need in the organization and start preparing people to fill those positions. Train people for positions that are either coming or emerging. Next, manage things and develop people. Sometimes we try to manage people. You cannot manage a human. The human is too complicated. They are an organism. You can't manage an organism. Most of the time you think you're controlling people. If you knew what they were thinking, you would die. You can't manage a human. They have a will. Even God can't manage a human. He paid the price for their salvation and still can't save them. He said, whosoever will. In other words, even though I prepared everything, you still can refuse me. I can't manage even your salvation. But you can manage a copier. You can manage a printer. You can manage a computer. But you can't manage people. So settle it now. I am an equipment manager and a people developer. Computers don't change. People do. Next, mentoring has to do with association, not instruction. So only through association is there transformation. In mentoring, the person has to be with you. I was sharing with the makeup lady this morning. I said, the only way for someone to really be a good mentee is they got to be present. Every opportunity they have, they should be with the mentor. And many of you who are in our mentoring program, I want to strongly urge you, every time we have a conference, try to be present. Because you want to be near the mentor. Let me reveal something that you probably never saw before. Joshua was mentored by Moses. Miriam was his sister. His brother was Aaron. They had pride problems. Remember, you cannot learn from someone you are jealous of. So Aaron and Miriam were jealous of Moses. You cannot learn from who you're jealous of. If you're jealous of me, as a trustee, for example, you can't stay here. You find it uncomfortable because first of all, I ain't got time for your jealousy. I'm too busy. And secondly, you can't learn from me. Because if you're jealous, you look for criticism. Aaron couldn't handle Moses. He started another organization in 40 days. Remember that? Moses went to the mountain, and Aaron and those folks started a new company. Why? Well, who does Moses think he is? Let's just start and take over. Let's start a new church. Yeah. And Miriam never came against her brother. She should have said no. She never said a word. Why? Remember, she was hungry for power too. She was silent. And people died in that situation. Many died. Your lack of respect for leadership could kill other people. But Joshua intrigues me. I was shocked when I found that Joshua stayed with Moses all the time. He didn't talk much. Matter of fact, you hardly ever hear anything said by Joshua in the whole books. He's quiet, but he's always present. Matter of fact, the scriptures would say, and Moses went to the tent of meeting, and Joshua was with him. He never said what he said, anything. He was always just with him, just with him. Why? He's being mentored. And then here's the part that got me. This is wonderful. It says, Joshua went with Moses to the tent of meeting. The tent of meeting was what? A special tent that Moses had set up where he met with God. It was the tent where God literally appeared to Moses, an intimate conversation. And the only person, it says, that went in that tent was Joshua. In other words, a mentor could get you into places. This is deep. And one time I read, I almost faded. It says, and Moses left the tent of meeting, and Joshua stayed. Now this is heavy. A mentor can get you into the presence of greatness, and you can actually stay there because he brought you there. And the greatness will start to talk to you. No one knows what God said to Joshua during those moments. Maybe that's why he was so prepared. We don't, at least, Joshua experienced God in a way that no other person experienced God because he was with a mentor. A mentor can open doors for you that no one else can open, and they can open them without pressure. You even ain't got to hand out cards and ask someone for an opportunity to minister. You just kind of be with a mentor. I always tell our friends here, if we allow you to minister here, we opening your life. My life is building this platform. Most of you here because of me. You learn me, you know me, and you hear. And then I give you my friends. And then you invite my friends. That's a door. I was talking to Keith. I was watching Keith. Hi, Keith. Keith never been here in that steel pan. I had 7 people come to me yesterday. I want him for my conference. I want him for my church. Okay, what have I done? Hey, I gave him my platform. You don't keep power, you share it. Association can really change your destination. Being with a mentor can change your destination. Ferris Hill, I love you. Ferris been with me a long time ago. He was one of the first men we invited here when he was young. All of us were young, actually, and he came here way back in 1982, 3. Ferris and I went to Africa last year, I guess it was sometime. He's never been to Africa before. And here I am in Pretoria, 5,000 people, 8 o'clock in the morning. Packed the place to see me, to hear what I have to say. White South Africans, black South Africans, Indian South Africans, together. They never used to be together. They came to hear me speak. It was my stage. I said, Ferris, here's the mic. They would never come to see Ferris. He never been to Africa. They don't know him. I said, here. I said, you got it, man. That's your audience. He sang. When he was finished, he had no CDs left. And then they started inviting him by themselves. You know, Brother Keith told me yesterday, he says, my CDs are gone. Listen, when you associate, you can transform your life. You produce leaders by allowing them to come in your space. Write that down, please. All of us got our space. We like to protect our space. Let people into your space. That's how you train people. Allow them to enjoy the glow of your light. Let people feel the power. Let them taste it. Like the Mount of Transfiguration, let those special ones feel the glow. Let them see power. And then tell them, when you go down, don't tell nobody. That was only for you. I want you to get used to power. The disciples were not used to it, so they said, let's stay here. He said, no, no, no. Get used to this. Don't build a monument around power. Get used to it being present. Don't worship it. Let's go where the people are. Let's take this power and go heal some people. And they went from that mountain, and there was a demon-possessed guy waiting for them. Power is not for you. It's for service. They wanted to stay where the power was. Power needs to stay where you are. You are in service. Next. People are opportunities, not interruptions. A leader will never consider people interruptions. I hear this very often. You know, I travel in all kinds of circles, and some of the circles I travel in, you know, some of my colleagues always got entourages and security people around them and 10 people following them with, you know, microphones in the air and all this stuff. And I show up with my wife. And they say, where are your security guard? I said, my wife is my security. Why? I don't want to protect myself from the people. People are not interruptions. Someone gave me a check yesterday. I got about 7 checks in the last 24 hours from people here. It's private gifts. And one of them said to me, he says, you know, I was in a very bad moment one time, having a depressing time. You came to my city, and I looked at you on the stage. I was in this big crowd. I looked at you, and I said, I wish I could get close to him. And this person said yesterday, said, you know, I was amazed that you came to our church with nobody, just you and your wife. And I was thinking, I'll never get close to this guy. And all you had was your wife. So I decided, I'm going to go through the crowd. I just need you to touch me and pray for me. And this person came, so they came to the crowd, and they stood a few distance, and they asked me, they said, the person said, I said, can I shake your hand? And he said, I smiled and says, come on. And I hugged him. He said, and every pain and fear he had left. Came back and gave me a check yesterday, years later. Just came here. He's here probably somewhere. Big check. I wonder how many checks you are avoiding. I got no time for y'all. I'm too busy. I'm a man of God. What are you talking about? Jesus took time for children. His disciples thought they were his security. I'm going to say it again. His disciples thought they were his security guards. They tried to stop the kids. He said, you leave them alone. Let them come to me. I don't need a protection from what I came to serve. People. You can't train people if you avoid them. Go home and repent. Leadership is about people. The next point, make room for others to make mistakes. If you're going to reproduce leaders, remember your own experience. You were not all of this all the time. You had your own problems. Someone was tolerating you for a long time. So you be tolerant, you be patient, you allow people to make some mistakes and make some errors. You know, the greatest thing you can do for a person is to make their mistake easy to correct. Peter, it's okay. Oh, and tell everyone to meet me and Peter. Isn't that beautiful? And Peter, bring him, tell him it's okay. He can come back to the meeting as well. I know what he did, but it's okay. Not only that, he's in charge. Wow. Great leaders have a big amount of patience. Their account of patience is endless. And they're quiet most of the time. You know, they know what's going on, but they don't talk much. They just, okay, you know, you'll grow through this. You'll get over this. They're patient. My time is gone. It's 9 o'clock. I want to thank you for allowing me to share some thoughts about why we don't mentor. Don't be afraid of people. Don't protect your position. Don't defend your position. Share it. Don't pursue power. Distribute it. I believe one of the greatest words I ever heard from Jesus Christ, the leader of all times, was these words. When he left, he said these words: all authority has been given unto me. How many? All. The next word is more important. Therefore. Now this is amazing. Everybody say therefore. In other words, I got all this power, and here is what it is there for. If you give most people all authority, the first thing they want is the office with a view, a parking spot with their name, and they want to use the private elevator. In other words, to them, authority is given to isolate yourself from others, to protect yourself from others, and to distinguish yourself from others. But the attitude of this great leader was so unique. He said, because I have all this authority now in heaven, in earth, and even in hell, under the earth, he says, therefore, you go. He distributed it. And he says, go and change the world. That's why we're here. Thank you very much. Go share the power.
Thank you once again for listening to this message, as we hope that it has been a blessing to you. Our goal is to show you new paths and opportunities so that you can discover your purpose. It is your love, support, and partnership that makes Munroe Global possible. Please visit us online at www.munroeglobal.com for more product, partnership, or to join us at one of our live events around the world.